Good afternoon and welcome to this Wednesday check-in here on the 7th day of July. Last Sunday we resumed in-person worship, and we keep our fingers crossed and hope as the number of those vaccinated continues to increase, we can continue to have this in-person service. For July and August we'll have a Sunday service at 10 a.m. We do ask that you register for the service using Eventbrite on our Cathedral website to ensure that you have a spot, as we are still limited to just 100 persons. If you have any difficulties navigating that site, just send an email to us or give us a call at the church office. Social distancing and masks are still required, and entrance will be through the side purple awning door off the parking lot. The service will also be recorded and uploaded when it concludes, which should make it available about 11:30 on our Facebook and YouTube channels. Morning prayer continues online Monday through Saturday, so wherever you may be this summer, home or traveling, you can stay connected with us and pray with us. We have also resumed a Wednesday morning Eucharist in person here in the Cathedral at 7:30 a.m. and a noon-hour Book of Common Prayer communion service on Fridays. Those two services do not require any advance registration. In August, our plan is to host some Wednesday noon-hour music events. Our music director, Paul Halley, is working on a schedule, so we'll keep you posted. The online meditation group resumes on July 15th, 6:30 via Zoom. If you'd like to check it out, send an email to prayasucan3, that's the number 3, @gmail.com. The 40th Annual Proudy, a fundraiser for cancer research hosted through Dartmouth College's Medical School in New Hampshire, is held every year on the second weekend of July. For the past 16 years, I've been a participant, and through your generous support have raised over $35,000 during that span. Last year and this year, the event is a virtual event. Last year, I biked 100 miles inside this cathedral, and this year I plan to bike 100 miles around the top of Citadel Hill. The plan is to do 50 miles Friday and 50 miles Saturday, but I understand with the approach of Hurricane or Tropical Storm Elsa arriving on Friday, I will probably have to move those biking dates to Saturday and Sunday. Don't mind a bit of rain, but I don't want to be blown off the hill. For more information about the Proudy itself, go online to www.theprouty.org. That's theprouty.org. A congratulations to Mary Simon, who has been named as Canada's next Lieutenant Governor and first Indigenous person to serve in that capacity. A woman of tremendous gifts, she was raised in the Ungava Bay region of northeastern Quebec. Speaking of outstanding Canadian women and bicycling, this is one that might have escaped your attention as it didn't get a lot of press. I just happened to catch a story about it on CBC's As It Happens program. Last week, 52-year-old Leah Goldstein of Vernon, British Columbia, became the first woman ever to win an event called the Race Across America. The race was first held in 1982 and is considered one of the most grueling endurance sport events on the planet. Bicyclists start on the California coast and race across the United States, ending in Maryland on the East Coast. It was made even more challenging this year as the event took place during the record heat waves that saw average temperatures between 35 and 49 degrees Celsius, 95 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. She started the race in Oceanside, California with a bang, riding for 40 straight hours with no sleep. After that, she would sleep for 3 out of every 24 hours, and by the end, she cut her sleep breaks down to a mere 90 minutes and spent the other 23 hours on her bike. She completed the 4,800-kilometer trip in 11 days, 3 hours, and 3 minutes. Her closest competition was a man by the name of Eric Nullensholm, who finished 17 hours behind her. And here I am worried about a bit of wind. Well, today there are no saints to highlight in any church calendars that I could find, but some late-breaking news. I learned early this morning that today is World Chocolate Day. Who knew? First established in 2009, this day celebrates the contribution the lonely cacao bean makes to our life. And why July 7th? Well, legend has it that it was on this day in history, in 1550, that chocolate first arrived in Europe. The earliest records of chocolate, though, date back to the 19th century BC, where Mayan and Aztec cultures made drinks from the bitter bean. The beans were picked, then left to ferment under a blanket of banana leaves, then dried, roasted, and the shells removed to reveal the chocolate nibs. Those are then ground into a powder. When heated, it melts into a chocolate liquor, which can be formed and cooled into blocks. The Baker's Chocolate Company is the oldest producer of chocolate in the United States, founded in Boston in 1765 by Dr. James Baker and John Hannon, and that company is still in business today. In 1875, Swiss chocolatier Daniel Peter invented milk chocolate by mixing a powdered milk that had been developed by Henry Nestle with the cocoa liquor. And it was John Cadbury, a chocolatier who set up shop in Birmingham, England in 1824, that created the first Easter egg in 1875. He was able to do that after improving a mixture of chocolate that could be more easily molded into shapes. Now, of course, the question is chocolate good for you? And the answer is yes. Dark chocolate is actually cited as being heart healthy and chock full of antioxidants. However, the more chocolate is processed, the more likely it is to have higher sugar content. So shoot for high cocoa percentages and low sugar if you're eating it for the health benefit. And what about that long-forgotten Easter egg or chocolate bar you find in the back of the cupboard or in the bottom of your sock drawer? Well, you'll be glad to know that the average chocolate bar is safe to consume for at least 2 years if kept in a cool, dry place. So go ahead and eat away. With chocolate as a theme, here is a poem I discovered by Canada's Robert Service, the poet of the Yukon and author of The Cremation of Sam McGee. According to the Poetry Foundation's website, Robert William Service was born in Lancashire, England, moved to Scotland at the age of 5, living with his grandfather and 3 aunts until his parents moved to Glasgow 4 years later and the family was reunited. He wrote his first poem on his 6th birthday. He was educated at some of the best schools in Scotland where his interest in poetry grew, alongside a desire for travel and adventure. Inspired by the adventure stories of Rudyard Kipling and Robert Louis Stevenson, Robert Service set sail to Western Canada in 1894 to become a cowboy in the Yukon wilderness. He worked on a ranch and then as a bank teller in Vancouver Island during the gold rush days. He was also a correspondent later for the Toronto Star during the Balkan Wars of 1912 to 13, and he served in World War I as an ambulance driver in France. Here is a poem, then, that tells of a childhood memory staring into the window of a candy store, wishing he had a penny that he could spend. I stood before a candy shop, which with a Christmas radiance shone. I saw my parents pass and stop to grin at me and then go on. The sweets were heaped in gleamy rows. On each I feasted. What a game! Against the glass with flattened nose, gulping my spittle as it came, So still I stood and stared and dreamed, savoring sweetness with my eyes, devouring dainties till it seemed my candy shop was paradise. I had, I think, but 5 years old, and though 70 have passed, I still recall the craintive cold, the grimy street, the gritty blast, and how I stared into that shop, its gifts so near and yet so far, of marzipan and toffee drop, of chocolate and walnut bar, imagining what I would buy amid delights so rich and rare. The glass was misted with my sigh, if just 1 penny pop could spare. And then when I returned to tea of bread and butter sparsely spread, oh, how my parents twitted me. You stood full hour, they said. We saw you as we passed again. Your eyes upon the sweets were glued, your nose was flattened to the pane, like someone hypnotized you stood. But when they laughed as at a joke, a bitterness I could not stem within my little heart awoke. Oh, I have long forgiven them, for though I know they did not own pennies to spare, they might, it seems, more understanding love have shown, more sympathy for those vain dreams, which make of me with wistful gaze God's window shopper all these days. That poem by Robert Service. And what about a song? Well, I have to admit the first to pop into my mind is certainly not a lyrical masterpiece by any means, but it is one of the most popular songs of its day, and one of those songs that once you hear it again will be worming its way through your brain for some time to come, I'm sure. This song was written by Jeff Barry and Andy Kim. Andy Kim is a Montreal musician whose biggest solo hits of the 60s and 70s were Baby I Love You and Rock Me Gently. But it was this particular song that hit the charts and remained internationally a #1 hit for 4 weeks and was named Record of the Year in 1969, for which Andy Kim is probably best known. The song was written for an animated TV series called The Archies, based on the Archie comic book characters, and the song title, Sugar, Sugar. So, with apologies for bringing this back into your mind, look up Sugar, Sugar by the Archies. It's a great toe tapper. And here's a little bit of trivia to go with it. The song Sugar, Sugar was played in the command module of Apollo 12 on a cassette player by the crew on the way to the moon in November of 1969. To quote Forrest Gump, "Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get." And ending with a prayer. Here is a prayer by Walter Rauschenbusch, an American theologian and Baptist pastor who taught at Rochester Theological Seminary in New York. Rauschenbusch was a key figure in the social gospel movement during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. He titles this prayer simply, A Thanksgiving Blessing. Let us pray. O God, we thank you for this earth, our home, for the wide sky and the blessed sun, for the salt sea and the running water, for the everlasting hills and the never-resting winds, for trees and the common grass underfoot. We thank you for our senses by which we hear the songs of the birds and see the splendor of the summer fields and taste of the autumn fruits and rejoice in the feel of the snow and smell the breath of the spring. Grant us a heart wide open to all this beauty, and save our souls from being so blind that we pass unseeing when even the common thorn bush is aflame with your glory. O Creator God, who lives and reigns forever and ever. Amen. Keep in touch, stay safe, and keep the faith until we meet again.